Hi, my name's Leighton Jin. I'm the Director of Development for the American Documentary and Animation Film Festival, also known as AmDocs. Today, I'm really excited. I've seen Angela Chen. She's in our market, award-winning journalist who does fantastic work, great journalism, and we're fortunate to feature two of her pieces here this year at AmDocs through our partnership with KESQ for Station. One of them is about the Salton Sea. We actually have a few features on the Salton Sea, and then we also have another one from her from about the Colorado River. So you're kind of like the Aqua Woman of journalism. Angela, can you let's start with the troubled waters about the Salton Sea, because just to hype you up a little bit, you won an Emmy, but you also won a Morrow Award, right?
Yes, that was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And that one was nice to do because I was doing it from the point of view of someone who had recently moved to the valley, had never heard of the Salton Sea, even though I grew up in Southern California. So we started from scratch on how it came to be, how it's affecting people now, and why it had languished for so long. And yeah, we were very fortunate to win an Emmy in recognition of our efforts, as well as a regional Murrow, as well as the Society of Environmental Journalists first place for outstanding explanatory reporting. And we also had a Golden Mike awarded to us for best investigative story. So yeah, the accolades were nice, but it was nice to see people write in as well, thanking us for explaining something that they know it's out there, right? It's like an hour's drive from Palm Springs. A lot of people never make that drive, but it's so close to us. I would recommend everybody, if they can, head out there just to see what we're talking about. This is California's largest lake, and so many people have no idea it even exists or its impact on SoCal.
Can you talk about how this all came together? Because I mean, you had put in like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but there's a lot of things that you had to do behind the scenes. Can you talk about how it all came together?
Yes, I had saw applications open from the Society of Environmental Journalists, and at that same time, I had I was talking to a friend about the Salton Sea, and the more I dug, the more I had questions because there hadn't been a sort of comprehensive, I thought, all in one, like one stop shop reporting where I could go see what it was about, why it affected people here, the history of it, how people were dealing or not dealing with it, which is what became the story. Um, so I applied for that grant from SEJ and won, and USC was also doing, um, they were also funding stories based on health reporting. And so this was very much a health story because that toxic playa can blow up and over into our valley and beyond SoCal. So it became a health story because of uh, the toxicity that you can breathe in from that lake and some of these underserved communities that live along the lake. And so it became an environmental story, a health story, a history story, so many different things in one. Um, so that's sort of what turned me on to it. These grant opportunities for journalism, is you, if you watch it, you'll see it was a very collaborative effort, great team. But you have to spend some money to get some of these shots we were doing, to animate some of the sequences. I was really excited about the treasure ship portion. Um, and that took money to create, right? Because you have to
Right.
pay for, it's a lot of rendering, it's a lot of storyboarding. I had gone to the guy who we used at the time, this graphic illustrator, and he was like, "What's the aesthetic you want?" And I said, "Have you seen Harry Potter? There's a story in Harry Potter where they tell the story of the three brothers." And I was like, "That's the look I want." And so we kind of modeled it after that for the treasure ship. But all of that takes money to tell a story well and to keep people's attention, because water is not very sexy to talk about sometimes. Water rights, environmental stories, you kind of lose people along the way. So it was important to us to tell it so that it was digestible, interesting, and easy to follow with a very complicated story.
Yeah, this looks like a big budget because I was watching. I was like, wow. I was like, wait a second. This is from our local station, and there's just a lot of elements that you guys had in there that was you don't generally typically see. in our
Right.
market, and it was really well done. And it's funny that you're talking about the grants, and the reason I was kind of bringing well, I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't quite ask it, but a lot of our filmmakers go through that. It's just finding funding for their movie to get that. And was that a difficult process for you? And do you have any advice for people who are applying for grants? I mean, I know yours was journalism grant, but people in our festival, they'll be applying for grants, whether it's through the arts, filmmaking, and sometimes journalism. We have a lot of journalists in our festival. What advice would you give them in terms of seeking out those grants?
Uh, research, research, research. Know what you're, be really specific in the story you want to tell, as specific as you can, because I know things change and sometimes you don't find out what the story is until you start investigating. And remember that your grant application is like storytelling in and of itself. You have to write essays, cover letters, and I would treat that as if you're completing another master like mini work, right? Because a lot of my applications uh, centralize around storytelling. And why should it be any different, right? You're trying to storytell with this grant. So why should you not tell a story to the judges who are going to award the grant? So I think a lot of grant writing can be very dry. It's your job to bring that story alive because that's what you're pitching them, right? Your storytelling ability for this very important subject. That's how I approached it. Deep research, know your stuff because it's going to be competitive. You don't want to be wishy washy. Um, and for me, it was important to do the research to see what had already been done. Why should someone fund me if it's already been done? What different angle am I taking? How is my storytelling potentially going to create an impact that hasn't already been? Um, so I think the writing was really important to me. And hopefully you have the support of your workplace. I had wonderful bosses. Rebecca Johnson, my news director, was so supportive throughout. So that always helps because often with these grants, you do have to show proof or intent that your station or your outlet will be broadcasting or publishing the story. So that always helps. So you have to pitch lots of people, right? Your own boss, and then the judges, and whoever else you're involving to convince them. It's important to really have a true passion for the subject you're about to tell. And if your heart's on it, and I think people can tell quickly. So
Yeah.
make sure it's apparent in your grant application. And again, tell a story. You have to get to the nitty gritty and answer all their questions, but every good letter, application, essay, there is some element of storytelling in it.
And then when you set out to do this, I mean, this wound up being, I think what I saw online was a full 30-minute special that you guys wound up doing. Was that the intent, or was it just something as you were reporting it got bigger and bigger?
The second one that you said, we
Yeah.
originally thought, oh, we'll just um we have sweeps pieces. Those are longer than news stories or what we call packages um in broadcast journalism. And typically those are a minute 30. Maybe a sweeps piece will be 4 minutes. Mine, they had a big discussion because mine ran so long. But I really pushed for it because to cut some of that the history out, or I just thought, they say you have to kill your darlings, kill your babies, for when you storytell and everything is precious to you, it's really tough to trim it down. So they were really lenient with me in having these longer pieces, which are considered sort of monster pieces for broadcast journalism. They worked with me in keeping as much of as we could for air. And then it eventually became okay, we have 4 parts. That's about enough for a 30-minute special. Why not re air it as a cohesive piece, as a special, so people can watch it back to back instead of waiting week after week? Because we would air one, it was 4 parts initially, and we would air one per week. Um, so it just kind of ended in this special. And we love a good special. So yeah, they're great. And my team, which was the ones who were out there with me shooting, Tim Kiley, my assistant news director, and our creative director, Kent Kay, were big parts, and producer Sarah Jane Arthur, and of course, news director Rebecca Johnson. That was like our core team for getting this together. It was a lot of work, so I couldn't have done it by myself. No
I mean,
way.
just living here, I appreciate that you guys did put at that time and the effort, because sometimes people are just just feeling buckets and not really trying to tell a great story. And you did that. I'm very appreciative to you. This was just a little background on our part. When I approached the station about being a media partner, which your station is one of our media partners, uh, the idea was like, I would love to show some of the news stories, and the one I had targeted was yours because I
Yay.
thought to me, last year was my first year being part of the festival, and I think it's just great journalism. Some of these people are doing. They might not think journalism, they think filmmaking, but to me, it's great journalism, storytelling, guided by the truth. That's what we had with yours, and so hopefully this encourages people to do these long pieces because in a day of misinformation, it's good to have something that really delves into the truth. And I think you did that, and I think that's what we want to try to encourage as well. So I'm really thrilled that we're going to be showing this piece, and then also the Colorado River piece. Can you talk to me about that one as well?
Oh, that that was
Oh, that.
another, and I've been wanting to do a follow, and this Colorado River focus kind of uh I think it was an email. Someone had passed along an email saying that grant applications, once again, were open. This is from the University of Colorado. They have this Center for Environmental Journalism, and they have something called the Water Desk Initiative, and they tell stories about the Colorado River. Very pertinent to us. And I thought, okay, I don't know the exact connection. And with all these water stories, I knew nothing. I was I'm a my career has been general reporting, right? So I know a little bit about everything, but not a whole lot about any one thing. And so this opportunity came along, and I knew California obviously depended on it, but I didn't know in what way or the intricacies. And the more I researched, the more I thought, holy cow, this is directly relevant to our reporting area. And because we have a bit of a news desert here, we our local journalism, as you know, paper and broadcast, it's the budgets have gotten smaller and smaller over the years. And so I didn't know at the time, which I later found out, that this Coachella Valley, Palo Verde, Imperial Valley was the genesis. It was the heart of water rights for the entire Colorado River, which, to be very clear, California, Nevada, Arizona, we would not be here if not for the Colorado River. You couldn't thrive and sustain millions of people without all of that water. Like, we are here because that river exists, and we've been drawing from it, over drawing from it for a long, long time. And so I thought that was fascinating. And you have articles here and there about it. The Desert Sun, of course, has done reporting on it, but I never seen a broadcast piece dive into that, um, cohesively analyzing the impact, the history. The interesting thing I found out along the way was the plight of the Native American peoples along the way who had just been left out of conversations about water use. You have, for example, the Navajo Nation. A third of them, they have the oldest rights to that water. They were here first, but they can't access that water, or they still have to truck it in. They have to drive out, get buckets, and in this day and age, still getting buckets of water from it. That's pretty uh, right. Uh, Part of that was highlighting the people who'd been left out of these discussions, who should be in these discussions. And there's been a change of that with the latest administration. There's more of a focus toward that. So that's, I think, been a big win, obviously, for the communities. But there's just so much to tell there. And there's no shortage of Colorado River reporting, but I hadn't seen it for our valleys in this area. So that was the angle I took diving in. We also have our farms with all the food we supply to America that people don't talk about too much. The East Valley in Coachella Valley is home to a lot of those crops that get sent out. 80% or so um, of the farms in the Coachella Valley, Palo Verde, and a little bit in Arizona that get sent out to America, and they are all supplied by Colorado River water. So it's all connected. It's tough for people to care sometimes, though, right? Because as long as your faucet works, you're not really wondering where the water is. But I thought it was important to go beyond that. We're all fighting over the water. Why are we fighting? Who gets it first? These are important
Right.
things to know. And so we broke it down, um, 4 parts once again, because and it easily could have been like 10 parts, but you know, TV does have limits. So we had to we had to control ourselves with that. But so much to learn, and still so much to learn, because there are developments every day from the Biden administration. There's more funding, money's being directed toward whatever purpose. They have deadlines in which they have to work out agreements, before 2026, and that's just starting. And so we're sort of just checking in at this really important point in history and seeing what happens in the next couple of years. So tune in. You will learn a lot, I promise.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, especially with the environment and climate change. So, I mean, this is perfect time to start talking about it because it really does affect all of us. You're talking that you had to limit yourself to 30 minutes. Is there any thoughts on your part of maybe someday turning some of these into a full-length documentary?
I would love that. It's the documentary scene is pretty foreign for a lot of journalists, TV journalists, because we are used to, here's your story for the day. You have to do a minute 30 package on it, and that's it, right? We're not used to these deep dives into a subject, often just because newsroom budgets and time don't allow for it. So this again was, I think, really generous of KESQ to allow us the time and to recognize that passion and to just go with it. I think a lot of stations these days wouldn't do that. It's getting
Mhm.
rarer and rarer to for broadcast journalism to allow that. Um, so I would love to one day, if time allows. There's more to tell always, but I don't know. We'll see. I don't know.
Well, let's step back. I know you covered a lot of other things, and when we're talking about documentaries, in addition to some of the water stories that you've done there, what other documentaries do you think that you'd like to do from stuff you've covered in the past?
Oh my gosh. I don't want to give it away though, Leighton. Part of this is
Oh, this is top
oh,
secret?
top secret. It's one of those, reporters and their pitches. You don't want to put
Right.
it out there because someone else might be like, "That's a great idea. Why don't I do it first?"
Oh, well, that's for
Sometimes you
sure.
keep
That's
your
true.
pitches close to your chest.
I'm
Um,
putting you in a bad spot. Maybe we should just gloss over that because I did that too when I was a reporter. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. I would answer that question myself, but I'm no longer a journalist. But yeah, when I was a journalist, I always thought about doing documentaries just so I would have time to really delve in and put stuff that I
yeah.
could before. But what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say you're always a journalist at heart. As long as you're curious, I think once a journalist, almost always a journalist. As long as you're curious and you keep asking,
Yeah, I think
right?
you're right.
Really leave you.
Now you were a professor for a time over at USC. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, it was for the graduate school, the journalism
Wow.
school there. Beautiful facility. They have a wonderful newsroom, and some great students there to get in. I think obviously they see that potential. Um, that was fun. It was really cool to see the next generation. I will say the next generation. Maybe it's because we're in California. Most people wanted to be either sports or entertainment journalists. You didn't get a lot of traditional journalists. Or people who wanted to just do general news.
Mhm.
Maybe that's just again a reflection of how our culture is going. But that was interesting to me. Or maybe it's a coastal thing. When I did graduate school at Columbia in New York, and you had a lot of more traditional journalists there who wanted to do the hard news. But I found most people wanted to do sports or entertainment, which makes sense, I guess, maybe for California or SoCal anyway. But it was a great experience. It's always fun teaching and sharing whatever you've learned, whatever you can do to help people not make the same mistakes you did, I think is
Mhm.
always always a win. And so that mentoring and teaching hasn't stopped because KESQ is a pretty small market, 146. So we get a lot of people whose first jobs are out here in the Coachella Valley. And uh, it's great to just keep that the tutelage going because they come in and they're still working on what kind of journalist or style they're going to be and what exactly they want to do. And it's good when they have an open mind and they're you can see them grow and improve and That's pretty rewarding as well. So it's like I haven't really left the teaching world.
With so the one thing that I've tried to do with this festival is kind of connect journalists and filmmakers.
Yeah.
Just because I'm part of AEJ, I believe you are, or at least were at one point, and I think we have a lot of when you're there, you meet a lot of great storytellers, and they what their stories, but there's so much more that you hope that they could tell, and because of the nature of where journalism is going, where a lot of people are downsizing, you have a lot of great storytellers who are in the market without a platform to tell their stories. And so, hopefully someday they'll look at this and we can help them find funding so they can tell some of these stories. Um, that's just my dream. So hopefully that can happen one day because, like I said, there's a lot of great storytellers. I've seen a lot of them laid off at the Desert Sun where I worked. I know there's been a lot of great journalists over at your station that are free agents now. So hopefully that could work out one day.
Right. The
Um,
AmDoc funds,
we have a
pretty
film fund. We have a film fund so people can come in and pitch, uh, pitch their stories for funding.
right.
What, yeah, one of them was a journalism student from Medill. She did a story about, she was from China. She did one on a Chinese student who went missing at the University of Illinois. Um, she she presented it during her when Medill came. The next year she came back and she got funding through us. She won our pitch competition, the film fund. She made it a feature length, and as she made a feature length, she was able to go even deeper into the story, and and we found out a lot more about the missing student. And then now it's on Paramount Plus, so that's just one of the success stories. And I think there's a lot of grants out there for filmmakers. We're just, and I also just feel like with all the streaming services, they need content, and content's more expensive after this writers and actors strike. Now they have to pay them what they deserve, which is quite a lot, but those are budget breakers, and I think a lot of these documentaries are.
So it opens the even
Yeah,
more opportunities for
yeah, I
some.
believe there are going to be more opportunities, and so hopefully that can help spur
Yeah.
journalism. Do
Yeah,
you, do
that's
you think that's a future for journalism with documentaries? I mean, I've told you my thoughts. Maybe I've given you the answer, but documentary and journalists. I mean, do you think that's the pathway to help journalism? Because obviously, we're in the print world, we're losing Sports Illustrated. We lose on TV. Bryant Gumbel just shut down Real Sports. I'm a sports guy, so that's why I give all the sports
yeah.
examples. But a
Uh
lot of long form journalism is kind of disappearing. It seems like, and
yeah,
it seems like we need documentaries more than ever.
I think the money, it's just tough to get the money to
Hmm.
sustain
Yeah,
journalists.
but hopefully,
If the funding's dried up or it's just less of it, it's just more competitive, or maybe there are just fewer people who have left the industry because of the entire state. I think it's really sad. I think journalism is so crucial to a democracy and to open. I think it's sad. We're losing a lot of good talent who are going to other industries who might be in
hmm
journalism, if not
hmm
for, these historically low pays in journalism. It's tough to think about your stories and your craft when you're worried about yourself and your future and if you can make rent. And unfortunately, I don't know when it started, probably 2000 or so, early 2000s.
yeah,
Newsrooms
it's
started
been a
funding
while.
their budgets. And so it's
Yeah,
just downhill ever since. And you're expected to do so much more. Doesn't matter which medium, you're just sort of expected to do more with less. And that's really tough. And I think people have been getting burned out left and right. I think the coverage, media, the political coverage and this attitude that media is all evil and out to get you is not helping. I've had a friend leave journalism because after the 2020 election, she had been spit on, she had been
Oof.
attacked for covering these and everyone just some people see media as Uh, I swear there is no meeting that we all attend every morning to see how we can trick the public or conspire. Everyone's just trying their best, and we're human and we try to follow these journalistic principles and standards guidelines, and it's not always it's not always 100%, but I think there are so many hardworking journalists out there, but a lot of them have just been turned off or for whatever reason and they've left. So that part is what's sad to me. We're losing so many good people who journalism changes lives and it changes policies, and I wish more people could see that instead of it's the evil media trying to brainwash us. We're just
Well, I
trying.
just remind people I watched that movie Spotlight, which won the Oscar,
Oh yeah.
and that was the one that broke the story about the Catholic priest
Yeah.
scandal in Boston. And if you watch it, the government failed them, the church failed them, all these people failed them except the journalist.
Yep.
And when they heard the story and they did the story, they exposed it, and they
Yeah.
probably saved a lot of lives doing that.
Right.
And that's what journalism does, and
And that's
people
the
forget
highest.
about that.
Yeah.
And
So
you need
I
that
wish
check
that
and balance
more.
because, yeah. Well, I'm just gonna say real quick, you need that check and balance because sometimes when you can't turn to the government or anyone to help you, journalists can help you. And I've told people many times if you need some help, I will just direct them and tell them go to the TV stations, go to the news,
Yes.
try to get that.
Right. It I wish media literacy were better in our nation as well. I think people have a tough time distinguishing between um straight news, opinion based on news, and then
Mhm,
comedy based on news, and where it's very different. And I think they just lump us all together.
mhm,
Social media influencers who use the news to create content, they're not traditional, like they're not media, right?
mhm,
Sense of journalism, but I
yeah,
will mash it all together. And that's why overall journalism's gotten a bad um, rap. And to be clear, there are some unethical journalists out there, but
yeah,
I hope that doesn't wash away the really good work that honest and diligent journalists do. So
yeah. When you talk
yeah,
about media journalists, I always tell them it's like they always say, "Well, it's this slanted this way, slanted that way." And I said, "It doesn't matter. They give you both sides. They're giving you the opportunity to come up with your own conclusion.
right.
You need both sides. When you don't get both sides, you're not getting news." And that's what I try to tell people. I'm
Yeah.
getting fired, so maybe,
I know. It's you, a journalist at heart. It's still in you.
yeah, it's still in
We're
me.
still
So I
asking
should
to
say
talk
former,
about.
maybe.
Yeah.
Well, Angela, sadly, we're talking about lack of time. We're starting to run out of time here.
On a
So
countdown.
So I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for these pieces. And I'm so glad that we're partnering with your station and we're showcasing your work. I think it inspire other filmmakers out here, hopefully, and some journalists. So I think that's always a positive. So thank you for doing this and for being a part of our festival.
I am so humbled and honored that you asked us. Thank you for letting us be a part of it. We're really happy to share it on our station, and I hope everyone gets a chance to check it out. I think you'll really learn about how water affects us and why we should care about those rights, and you know, drawing back on that overuse. Water's key to surviving, obviously, and thriving.
Angela Chen's Making Water Sexy without Jason Momoa. Well, that's
uh,
it.
wait,
Well, again, that's it for now. Remember, the AmDocs is March 21st to 25th at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. Get your tickets soon because they're starting to go pretty good. And Angela, again, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
so happy to be here. Thanks again.